On this edition of Simon Says, we're going to talk about successful fundraising. Nonprofit organizations have to do it. For many, it's the difference between life and going out of business. Jay Pierce joins us. I'm Scott Simon. It's an episode you won't want to miss. Jay Pierce is the Chief Executive Officer for WVIK Radio, Augustana College owned in Rock Island, Illinois. We've had him before on Simon Says, and on this show, it's how to fundraise. Now, this is not just for nonprofit radio stations, but tips Jay can give can be applied to any nonprofit, I would imagine. Right, Jay?
Yeah, we fundraise like a nonprofit. That's what we are, and I think that we are members of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, and we basically follow the same kind of things that you do when you're trying to get somebody to invest in your organization.
Right? Now, you just had a fundraiser. How did it go,
Yes.
especially with what's going on in the Quad Cities now with severe flooding on the Mississippi River that can occupy the attention of your listeners?
Yeah, so we have to get their attention, and we did pretty well. We came in at $37,000, and our goal was $40,000, so we were a little under our goal. But I'll give you the caveat that it's harder and harder to set goals now that we have started emphasizing what we call sustainers, but it could be called a subscription model. In other words, sign up to give us a certain amount a month and just continue it till you say stop. And so with more and more of our listeners doing that, we are seeing fewer calling during the old-fashioned pledge drives.
Okay, so you were just a little bit under, but let me ask you this. When you set a goal, do you artificially set it higher than what you think you reasonably might attain?
We do stretch, yes. I'm supposing that psychology plays a part in that, in that, boy, if we went over, that'd be awesome. If we come up a few $1,000s short, we're probably right about on track with where we need to be, and we have the remainder of the fiscal year, which ends June 30th, 2019. So we have May and June, the rest of April, and then May and June to make up that money. So we will just basically take our the amount of money that we figured we had to raise from listeners, which is about 40% of the money that we raise to run the station, and we'll just add that $3,000 into it and spread it out over the next few months of fundraising. So the fundraising, by the way, goes on all year. It's not just pledge drives. So
to all the people listening on how to fundraise successfully, you've been at this for quite a while. What is it that you think you do better than the average fundraiser, and why?
That's interesting. Well, it's not really, pledge drives are one part of it. Mail is one. We get the biggest return from mail, and I think we write some pretty good letters from the heart and very genuine. Not a lot of gimmicks. We don't believe in gimmicks. We're just very honest about what we do. I think we have a really good mission, and so what we try to do during fundraising on the air and through telemarketing and e-blasts and on Facebook and everywhere that we do it, is to just be very honest about the fact that 40% of the money it takes to do what we're doing must come from listeners, and here's how you can give, and here's why we believe you should give. Here's what you're giving, and the giving of those of others has enabled us to do, and here's what we're planning on doing in the future. So it's kind of a, what have you done for me lately? What are you going to do for me? What is my gift going to enable? Why should I give now? Type of thing that we try to answer every time we set out.
It's interesting that you said that you do well with mailing, because you do have one advantage, is that being a radio station, you can actively live communicate with people who are listening to get on-demand right-away donations. But for nonprofits that don't have that ability with the radio station, of course, that now they could Facebook live stream if they wanted to, and other vehicles. What is it about mail that gets people to open up their wallets and pocketbooks?
I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that they have it in their hand right then. And if they're opening their mail while they're paying bills, they've got their checkbook out, or they have the ability to go online and hit the donate button. It's a timing thing. It's like you're just the message. If the message resonates, maybe they've heard it on the air throughout the year or during a pledge drive, and then the letter comes to them. We try to write our letters very succinctly and to the point, and then we give an easy way to donate. We suggest amounts and make the process very easy for them. So you're hitting them at the right time. If they're opening up mail, paying bills, the checkbook's out, maybe that's the most convenient way for them to give.
For our listeners who are trying to craft a message to their audience for fundraising, and you're one of the best content writers around, what is the one message that you have to put in a mail letter to a potential donor that's an absolute must in order to get them to donate?
I always ask them for money. We make a case. There's a giving path, and you let people know what this is, why you're doing it. You give them the case, your best case, and I kind of talked about that. What have we done for you? What are we going to do? What will your money enable us to do? How has your money impacted the community? But then you have to ask, and a lot of people leave the ask out. So the words will show up. I am asking you to make a contribution of $120 in order to what? Maintain our ability to bring you classical music and recordings of local symphonies, if that's what we determine that this person might be interested in, to bring you thoughtful consideration of important topics and news, especially headed into an election year, if they're a news and public affairs fan. So we tailor them to the different audiences that we have. But you always have to ask. I receive a lot of solicitations that make a very good case, but they don't close. There's no closing. And you got to close the deal.
Okay.
So you have to ask for the money. Yeah, and it helps to suggest an amount and let them know what that's going to do.
Now, like me, you have been a news writer for many, many years, and of course, they tell us that you have to lead with the most important thing. So asking for the money is the most important thing, but I would imagine that you don't put that in the lead of your letter to donors saying, hey, we want your money. Not maybe exactly that way, but yes, I do put it up. Actually, really? Okay.
Near the top.
Give me an example, just off the top of your head, the language you use when you ask for money, because like you said, one, people don't ask for it, but two, people don't know how to write to ask for it.
Yeah, you don't want to bury the lead. You really don't want to somewhere down in the middle of a page, and the letters are never more than a page. Leave room for the salutation at the end. Leave room for yourself to write a personal note if you have a relationship with the person, etc. But so what you're looking at 5 paragraphs, maybe 4. But what you need to do is you need to make it clear at the beginning of the letter. Please consider this, maybe not in those words, but consider this your invitation to join us in expanding our ability to, or something like that. I have some exciting news. We're putting a new radio station on the air, and I'm asking you to invest in it right now. Here's what it'll enable us to do. This is what it'll do for the community. This is what it'll do for you. That kind of thing. I have no problem putting it right up front in the first part. Thanks for what you've done for us. And now here's what I'm asking you to do now. So,
and for our listeners, what we'll do is in the story that I write online, I will put what Jay is writing as important for you to consider in preparing your letter, bullet points as it were, through all the years. Tell me what the most successful fundraising project you were a participant in as a team member, and why was it successful, the most successful?
Well, there are two, I think, that stand out. One, at my old place, we were seeking to honor the executive director of WILL, Don Mullally, who has since passed away. But by starting, he was very concerned about students, and we wanted to start a scholarship for him, named after him, or an internship, rather. I'm sorry, an internship, and we needed to raise $60,000 to do that. That would provide enough interest income to fund an intern for 2 semesters each year in perpetuity. And so to start that, we asked a couple to make the lead gift. And so we thought it would be really good if we could have a lead gift of half the amount of money necessary to do it. Okay. And so we met and we talked and holy mackerel, one day they came into the radio station with a checkbook and wrote a check for $30,000.
Wow.
That was really gratifying. We'd made our case. We had talked about it. We talked about how this would honor Don, who they had an association with, and how this would help students, one of Don's passions, the future of journalism. And so we knew going into it a couple of things. One, we knew they had the capacity, because that's a very important thing. You have to know what the person is capable of giving, some of the other things they give to, what amounts they're comfortable with giving. You have to also make sure that what you are proposing aligns with their values. And so we knew we had a pretty good idea of all that heading into it. So
okay.
And then you come up with the amount. Well, what's a significant amount? Starting out with half, and then we would raise half. So in other words, it was like matching money. We would raise the other half, and so that was very nice. Turned out very nice. And then we raised a significant amount of money right when I got here at WVIK 7 years ago to replace 15-year-old analog equipment, move into the digital age. And so we raised I think it was a year and a half, we raised $750,000.
Holy cow.
And we spent it in the next year to redo the building, redo the infrastructure of the whole place. And I always say it was like speed dating, but because I hadn't met any of these people before. I was new to town. And fortunately, our development director had been around in various capacities and was now with the station already. And so she could introduce me to people, but it was my job to get them excited about the project, convince them of why we needed to do it and what their money would allow us to do and what the project would allow us to do. And so we were able to get some good lead gifts. Some foundations stepped up and in, and then we raised it, and then we spent it. So
I'll make this. Okay, I'm going to make this my last question about fundraising for this edition. But when I was in Kansas City, I was invited a few times by KCPT Channel 19, the PBS station, to participate in their on-air fundraisers. And I was willing to do that. One reason was because I was a show panelist on their weekly public affairs show. But and I imagine that you invite those from the community to participate in your fundraising. Is this something that's really important for any nonprofit, that to go outside the immediate circle to get participants from the community to join you in a fundraising effort?
So what we do is a little bit different than we used to. Whereas we used to have a lot of community members come in and be on the air during the fund drive, and what we found is more successful is to stick to the message on the air, because we only have 3 to 4 minutes in every break, maybe 5, to stick to our message. And our pledge breaks are semi-scripted. They're pretty scripted, actually, so that we don't miss any points, and so that we do follow the giving path and make sure we don't leave any elements out. But at the same time, we record testimonials from community members, donors, high-profile individuals in the community, people who just love the radio station and donate. And so those are about anywhere from 20 to 40 seconds long, and we will pepper them throughout the drive.
And that's something anybody can do, even if they don't have a radio station. They can solicit testimonials and publish it online in text.
People want to know that there are other people just like them giving, signing on. It's also, when you're doing major giving fundraising, it's always good to what we call triangulate in a meeting, when you're meeting with someone who maybe you're not all that familiar with. So you bring along someone who does contribute to your specific drive or your station overall, who makes the introduction to the person. You have the discussion. Often when you make the ask for the specific amount of money for a certain thing, the person will kind of look over to the person that they do know, and if the person they do know kind of gives them a nod, it's kind of like, yeah, they're okay. They've done good by me. It's okay, and that helps a lot. That's how testimonials work as well.
If somebody were to have a specific question, wanting some help, how could they get a hold of you?
Well, they could jaypearce@wvik.org.
And we'll put that on the story on the website as well. Normally I ask my listeners to do something for me for Simon Says Stories, but since I have Jay on the line here, I thought I'd do something fun that I think he'll enjoy, and that's about his brother, Gary.
Oh, yeah.
Gary has a podcast. Jay, your brother is amazing. Well, you're amazing too, but your brother's amazing. He's a podcaster, so I thought I'd let you promote his podcast on my show here.
Sure. He's a very smart guy, and he's been a disc jockey, a video editor. If you ever saw the Travelocity commercials with the Wandering Gnome, and you heard the guy going, "Travelocity presents," well, that's my brother. I'll tell a secret on that real quickly. He got that job doing the voiceover because he was editing the commercials together. He would take the Wandering Gnome's voice, he would take the video segments, and he was editing all of this together. And he used himself as a placeholder because they hadn't hired a voice talent yet. And the client, Travelocity, or whoever was, the ad agency in charge of getting the commercials done, liked the way he sounded, so he got the job. So that was pretty cool.
Well,
whereas he had a middling disc jockey career at best, but we've always had this rivalry going throughout our lives, and so he beats me. He got to use the voice of Travelocity.
Well, and he is now the voice of his podcast, Triangle Talk Show.
Triangle Talk Show. and it's very interesting. He's a techno geek, so he does this in video, and he does split screens with his guests, and it's an interesting show. He is a very smart guy and has some very interesting opinions. He is very well researched, and you may or may not agree with him, but I think the show's very interesting. If I had to say something, I'd say he's kind of like, if you've ever heard Harry Shearer do the
Yes.
show, he's kind of laid back like Harry Shearer is, but then he does his interviews and puts a lot of interesting visuals up to it. So, yeah, check it out, Triangle Talk Show. And if you Google it, Gary Pierce, Pearce, you can find it.
And we share that with you, the listener, because you like audio, you like podcasts, and so we like to share good podcasts. I started listening to it a couple of weeks ago, and it was really good. It's amazing. If I close my eyes and listen to him speak, I can't tell the difference between you and Gary.
Well, we're brothers. He's my older brother, so
okay.
I probably inherited something, along the line too.
True. Okay, now, because Jay talked about advertising, we're proud to announce on Simon Says Story we have a new sponsor, Audible. Audible is a sponsor of Simon Says Stories. We have the link on the website, and what you just need to do is, would you like 2 free books? Click on the Audible link. Join Audible for a 30-day trial. Pick your 2 books, whatever it could be, or what it might be of interest. And after 30 days, if you don't like it, you still get to keep the books. But a lot of people do like listening to audiobooks, and so we welcome Audible as a sponsor of SimonSaysStories.com. In fact, as we close, Jay, are there any books about WVIK or Augustana College that people could pick up and read, or what would you recommend?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't think there's any books about us at WVIK. Maybe I'll write one when I retire.
Okay.
But you can look up Augustana College. It has a very interesting history. It's an evangelical Lutheran private college and a liberal arts college. And if you Google it, Augustana College, not university, you'll no doubt come up with some articles about it. And if you look at our WVIK.org page, you can find my boss's Kent Barnes did some podcasts about, he's our college admissions, and he has some other comments about the whole admissions scandal that's been going on. If you just, Kent Barnes, Barnds, pretty bright guy. And Steve Balls, Bahls, is our president, and he's a pretty bright guy. He has written some articles on shared governance, which is a practice here at Augustana that makes it a really wonderful place to work.
For you listeners who just heard Jay Pierce, CEO of WVIK Radio, Augustana College in the Quad Cities, and you are into fundraising and you think somebody else might enjoy hearing what Jay had to say, please share it with them. For Jay Pierce, I'm Scott Simon. Simon Says Stories, thanks for joining us from the greatest city in the world, Las Vegas, Nevada.